Hey guys, welcome. Today we're going to talk about the three main fears that people have before they begin riding. Let's begin. The first thing that people tend to get a little bit kind of overworked about is the gear that they need to buy and the way that it's going to feel when they get on them and how they're going to be able to move on the bike, which is going to move us into number two, which is actually controlling the motorcycle. A lot of people get really concerned with all the different things that their body's going to have to be doing at one time to be able to even go down the road safely. And then in talking about going down the road safely, what that entails is the conditions themselves. So it's going to be first thing, the gear and the feel that you have when you put it all on. At first, those helmets are going to be really tight. The jackets, depending on which one you get, it's going to be hard to move. Leather is really tight. Some of those, even the heavier mesh and textile, have all the padding in there. It's going to feel a little bit uncomfortable. The helmet aspect, it'll start really tight. Honestly, within a single summer of riding, you're going to sweat into that helmet, and all of that is going to just completely mold to your head. So not to say that if you have like a pulse going on in your head that you should just ignore it, but realistically speaking, if it's a little bit snug, like mine was really snug around the cheeks, that's perfectly fine. The next fear that people generally have is controlling the bike. When I was buying the bike, they set it all up for me. They had it in the parking lot waiting for me. The parking lot that I had to pull it out of was a very tight parking lot. We're talking maybe 15 feet. The bike was pointed directly at the building, so I had to make a sharp 45-degree turn or a 90-degree turn to then head straight down a very steep hill that maybe goes for 10 feet again into a divided 4-lane 45-mile-an-hour road, and it's right outside of a major city, so there's a ton of cars. So you miss the one point, you run into the building, you miss the next turn, you run into the street, you don't stop. It was an immensely adrenaline fueled moment for me, and realistically, I'll never forget, I started to let the clutch out and just boom, and it just stalled. And I'm embarrassed because I just bought this brand new bike and I just stalled before I even made it more than 3 inches. Once I got past that part of the first turn, I went down to the street, made it to the stop, and I think I stalled once more there, and then I turned onto the street and I had to make a U-turn. And during the U-turn process, I stalled, I think, 3 times in a row. And then I continued on my journey, and I think I stalled maybe 2 or 3 more times after that. So nothing to be embarrassed about when it comes to stalling. I mean, realistically, someone who rides bikes their whole life could still hop on another bike that they're not overly familiar with and stall that bike. It just, every clutch cable that I've kind of come into contact with too, with other people's bikes, kind of engages in the friction zones in different points. And, eventually you develop muscle memory to your bike or your bikes, and you'll hop on a different one, and that muscle memory won't really serve you well on that bike. And therefore, sometimes those veterans will still hop on a bike and just boom, they just stall it right out. So that aspect of it was a little bit complicated for me personally. The real fluidity within your actual riding doesn't develop for a while. It's going to take seat time. It's going to take a few hours of practice. You're going to spend, time in parking lots doing slow speed maneuvers, time on the streets doing a little bit higher speed maneuvers. It's not something that you just say like, oh, I think I got it, and then you get on it and you just have it all down. There's a lot of different extenuating circumstances that can greatly change even a seasoned rider into having to make some serious alterations in the way that they normally behave on their bike. So the third and final issue that people really get concerned with being the conditions. The conditions of my ride home personally, it was about 4:30 by the time I got done all the paperwork and the service on the motorcycle and everything. And at that point, it had begun getting dark because it was February, and it had begun raining. So I was doing my first ride home with kind of like spitting rain in rush hour traffic, leaving a major city in what became nighttime. I did implore the help of a buddy to come follow me on his bike. He was an immense help, and I highly recommend that if you have a friend who rides, you bring them with you to pick up the motorcycle. It's a combination of reasons, but for one, like, When I stalled on the street, he was behind me, stood up, he's waving his hand. And people, honestly, I think I had like one person honk at me, and I think that was when I stalled 3 times in a row. And I'm going to be honest with you, I deserved a honking. So couldn't even be mad at that guy. I had been there for like 30 seconds struggling on a green light. So at that point, you just have to take a deep breath, reset yourself, start again. You just can't give up. You can't get frustrated. This is not something that you're going to just dominate from the moment you start on it. Other aspect of my ride home was it was a combination of not highway rides, but 55-mile-an-hour streets with lights on them, and then back roads that I now go back to enjoy on a super sport because they're just super windy and fun. I thought it would help me avoid some of the major roads, but some of those turns really, they weren't great for a first ride home. I truly believe that you would do better off riding on a major road that has the lights and stuff like that on there than a windy back road, because even though there was less traffic, at least around me, there's still traffic on those back roads. There's still cars, there's still people, and to me the back road turning and things like that was a lot harder than when I was moving a little bit quicker. It was that slow speed, came to a stop sign, have to make a sharp right hand turn, don't want to go too wide in the oncoming traffic kind of thing on the back roads that really got me. But when I was moving 10, 20, 30, 40 miles an hour, I didn't really seem to have those issues at that point in time. It was mostly just the slower stuff that scared me, or at least that I was uncertain of. For my ride, I want to say it was about a 12-mile ride home. That ride home wasn't exactly, ideal. It wasn't exactly quick. We took our time with it, especially with me stalling and everything. There was a few times where I pulled off. So my goal over the next couple of weeks is to create an entire series for people that are still learning and just getting into it, to be able to kind of follow along and learn every aspect of it. This is just my personal experience with my first bike that I picked up and how I got it home. Not necessarily what I would recommend for somebody else who's a little bit more concerned. I don't tend to err on the side of like panic mode when it comes to high stress situations. I tend to become a little bit more calm. And so for me, getting it home was just a matter of, hey, have a buddy come with me. I've watched enough videos where I'll be able to pick it up in a couple of minutes. I get the concepts. My goal is to create enough content with YouTube where you guys will be able to follow my channel, follow every aspect of learning how to ride, and I'm going to go back over it all. I don't want to say that it's overly fresh at this point, but there's been a few people that I've helped kind of get into the actual sport, which has then helped me to kind of remain sharp on some of those feelings that people have when they're first getting started. The next video that'll be coming your way will be the gear that I like to wear when I ride, and different seasons and different gear along the way that I've purchased. So keep an eye out for that one.